Good morning, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome to this week's Weekly Energy Boost. My name is Elisheva, and I'm here today with David, and we are talking about when to extend a helping hand, empathy in action. And this is a real timely topic, of course, because on one hand, everyone's going through something, and on the other hand, that going through something can create isolation and disconnection. And we learn from the Kabbalists that when we go through something, the purpose is never to separate us or to isolate us. It's to bring us together, to seek connection, and to find common ground. So we're going to break that down in this, I guess we're in now like the third week of the month of Virgo-ish. Second week, let's say. It starts in the middle of the week, but anyway, it doesn't really matter. The point is that one of the key characteristics, or if you and I were sitting at a cafe on the street watching people walk by, one of the ways we would identify a Virgo is their aloofness. They tend to come off as cold and insensitive or clinical and calculated. And knowing that, we also want to make sure that we're careful this month not to be distant and cold when it comes to emotion. So we'll be talking a bit about that too. Weekly Energy Boost is a 7-day spiritual weather forecast where David and I, and sometimes our guests, help us, all of us, including ourselves behind the mic, navigate the coming 7 days, looking out for what could be challenging or what opportunities and gifts might be available. And in so we share lessons and insights that can help you any week of the year, any time of your life. And again, this week is no different. On one hand, we're preparing for a very powerful month coming up, and they say, the Kabbalists say, if you prepare, you benefit. Like actually, the preparation is really more important than how you're showing up. So,
I was thinking, even when people listen to our podcast, sometimes maybe they miss a couple, so they go back and they're scrolling for a topic that resonates with them. But what's really interesting, this is a big secret about the power of consciousness. You need to know that the sessions that we do, we read from the Zohar beforehand. We're tapping into great ancient light, portals of light as we're talking. So even though we're trying to make it practical for what people are going through on a daily basis, there's a great light that's revealed in all the sessions that we do. And we aim for that. We meditate on that. And so whatever you're hearing, regardless of the topic, depending on what you're asking for from the universe and where your consciousness is, you will get the message. So you could be going through a relationship crisis, and you're looking for relationship advice, but maybe one of our podcasts talks about something totally different, like reincarnation or something around prosperity. You could get your relationship advice, your secret, your message from a prosperity session. And why is that true? Because, as Elisheva said, it's all about preparing your consciousness, your vessel. It has less to do with the actual topic of the podcast. And it's a really powerful thing because it shows us that we are in control of how we draw down messages, how we reveal secrets. We are in control. We have the power to receive messages whenever, however, and from whomever in our lives. But the problem is we don't have that certainty. We give that power to other people. We say it's that doctor or that attorney or that partner or that teacher or that guru who's actually giving us the message. And I always share this with my students. If you could come in front of, Abraham from the Bible or Moses, you came in front of him and you asked them to give you relationship advice. If you were blocked, even Moses could not receive a message for you, right? Nothing would be different than if the greatest sage would give you advice versus someone who is totally random with no pedigree. Because it all comes down to your consciousness, your vessel. Are you ready to receive the message?
What's interesting also is that what David shared and this week's topic also focus a lot on the idea of being open. And again, when we struggle with something, we tend to close ourselves off. We recede to our cave to lick our wounds, or we have this perception that no one's going to understand me, or I'm alone in this, or I don't want to seem weak or needy or helpless. And there's a lot of research and now understanding around the idea that when we talk to one another, and this is something that comes up a lot in the work that David and I do with individuals, when someone shares with you what they're going through, it's very easy to feel sympathy, right? That's terrible. I'm so sorry. That must be so difficult. What ends up happening when you come from a sympathetic place is that there's a very subtle and unseen power divide that's created. Like you are in need, or you are struggling, and I am safe. I am not struggling. And there's almost like a looking down on the other person. Like that must be so hard for you. And the difference between sympathy and empathy, and that's something that, again, as somebody who works with individuals and couples, it's something that I feel I can never, it always has to be strengthened in me, and I always have to work on it, is to find that point of connection. I might not know what you're going through. I might not have that same situation, but if you're in pain right now, I've felt pain before, and I can relate to you from the place where I've felt pain. It reminds me of a story of a Kabbalist. A father went to see his teacher, the Kabbalist, and his child was very ill, and the doctor said that there was nothing left to do. And so the Kabbalist came to the house and spent hours praying and meditating and begging the Creator for something to break through, an opening for this child to be healed. And the Kabbalist came away saying, they said, there's nothing to be done. And the Kabbalist left, and the father went outside and started crying. And a few minutes later, the Kabbalist came back to his student, the father, and said, if I can't help, the least I can do is sit here and cry with you. And that's, to me, really a story about the power of connection, and that the power of empathy, that when we connect with one another, when we find that common thread between us, we can actually offload the other person's pain and suffering. And this becomes a theme. I don't know, David, if maybe I'm taking this on a bit of a tangent, but there's another teaching that comes up around the time of the month of Libra that we're coming to, where we have that 48-hour window of Rosh Hashanah that we're doing this preparation work for. And of course, the whole 21 first days of Libra, each one has a gift inside it. One of the Kabbalists teach that by being together, when you come together with a group of people, there's got to be someone in that group, and we're together with thousands of other people in person, and then, of course, the people that are tuning into stream with us, that someone else in the room has gone to the other side of what I'm going through, has been through the struggle and triumphed. And so somewhere in that group is the antidote, or is the cure for what I'm going through. And by being in the same room with that person, I am therefore connecting to the healing or the antidote for what I'm experiencing. It's like we really complete each other.
This is really powerful what you're saying. And this is why support groups are so healing and popular. People look for that. When you go through pain, you're looking for someone who's gone through it, either is going through it, or has gone through it and has opened up that gate and that portal of energy. And when the sages say, when we pray together, when we pray in a room together, versus if we were to do it individually, we're benefiting from the gates that everyone is opening. And so we can't underscore that enough as we start to get to that moment in time where our new destiny is being created for the whole year, which is called Rosh Hashanah. Above and beyond religion, this is for every soul in this world. This is happening. This is happening whether you know about it or not, or want it to happen or not. There is a new video, a new movie that's going to be given to you based on your consciousness of the prior 365 days. What is that consciousness? Your desire to receive. How have you transformed? What have you taken responsibility for or not? What are you still not dealing with? And a new movie is created to take you to your highest destiny, ultimately. So being together is incredibly important on these days. This is not, these 48 hours we have to take so seriously And this year, 2023, it happens on the night of September 15th until nightfall, September 17th. So it's Friday night to Sunday night, right? And we should take it so seriously. Your consciousness, you have to be in top shape in those 48 hours. Your thoughts, your words, your emotions, and you will be tested. You will be tested. You have to push through those tests. So it's not about just being in a Zen state. Actually, if you are fighting in those 48 hours, it's a very positive sign, because it's the fighting and the friction, the not giving up, the certainty in the face of doubt, the happiness in the face of sadness that actually reveals the light and creates the new destiny for the whole year.
And it's interesting because the 30 days before that window opens is giving us, like, every day we have the opportunity.
It's uncovering something new every day. It's coming to if you're not feeling it, every day something is coming, a sludge is coming up to the surface in your mind, in your thoughts, in your feelings, in your heart, in your relationships.
And it's not because you're doing something wrong. The nature of this time is to show us where the work is to be done. So it's almost like a montage of the previous year and all of the ways that we might have fallen short or made mistakes. And the universe is trying to show us, here's what you didn't do. And remember, the next time it comes up, to do it differently. So I think also that we've spoken in the last few weeks about being more compassionate with ourselves, being less judgmental. This is another layer of that conversation, in knowing that whatever I'm going through, the sludge I'm seeing, my friend, my neighbor, my partner, my child, my boss is going through that, whether they're conscious of it or not. And that can be a heavy burden to lift as well.
So let's talk about that for a moment, because I think that when that sludge comes up to the surface, I like that we're using this word today. The sludge comes up to the surface, we all react differently. And I think that for most of us, we don't know what to do when we feel shame or guilt or regret or fear. We get paralyzed in many ways, and we want to soothe that immediately. But what is important is not to, this is classic Kabbalah 1, not to react, but to observe the pain. Observe the pain almost as if you're stepping outside of your body. It is so common for all of us to want to get through it quickly. We want to rush.
Well, that's why I like the idea
process
of watching it like in a film clip. You know, you're seeing a throwback to something that happened in the past, and so you're not reacting to it. You're simply observing it, noting it, and strategizing.
Right. And by the way, you've heard this before. We've said it. Everybody's talking about it. Spiritual leaders are talking about it. But you're hearing it again. Because when you hear it, you get the strength to do it, at least for another 24 hours. And then we forget, and that's okay. We got to keep connecting to each other. We're connecting to each other's energy, so that when the fear comes up and the pain comes up, that 7-second window, which is often all we have, to respond or not, because if you react, you're shifting down in your destiny. And if you pause and observe, you start to dematerialize the fear and the negativity. And the second thing that is so important is never forget to tell yourself, I have certainty that this is going to work out. I have certainty that this is going to work out, even if your body disagrees, even if your mind and your heart, they're both fighting you and saying, no, I don't see how this is going to work out. In order to get through this process quickly, compassionately, certainty is essential. I have certainty that everything will be good. I do not know what is happening. I cannot see what is happening. It is painful. It is ugly sometimes. And I'm uncomfortable. That's okay. I have certainty. I mean, Elisheva, you know it. No matter what level you're at, no matter how long you've been studying this wisdom, if it's a day or a decade or several decades, that new test comes and it's brand new for you. and it's brand new for your soul, that for thousands of years, it has never passed this one test. Think about it. This one test is so unique for thousands of years and lifetimes. Your soul has never been able to pass that one test. And it's such an opportunity. And even if you fail, it's fine. It'll come back again weeks later, months later. Every year, it says in the Shana, in the year, you have the Shinui, the opportunity to change. So every year, every test comes back in some way. Thought, in desire, in reality, it comes up. It's important to accept what's happening and not fight it, accept it. I have certainty that this is good. I accept that this is happening. And as soon as you do that, you're connected to the light of the Creator. What happens after that, we don't know. And we're not here to guess or tell you what's going to happen. And whoever tells you, it's limited. But all you can do and all you have to do is connect with the light force. And you do that through pausing, through certainty and acceptance.
And I think we should take a moment to focus this discussion on, I think, what would be perhaps the hardest relationship to practice this in, which is with our significant other, whether, you're in a long-term relationship or you're married or, you have somebody that you've been living with for what doesn't even matter, but take that person that you're closest with. How can you practice empathy when they're not when they're reactive, when they're not being their best self? And I think if we reflect on
we're talking about when the other person is just not responding in the right way or is reactive.
Or can't. Maybe they're going through something, right? Again, we want to step out of the judgment and look at it objectively. They're struggling with something that may not even be related to you, that often isn't related to you as their partner. It's not a dissatisfaction in the relationship or a struggle with you as a person. It's something that's going on with them. Maybe their sludge is coming up for them, or they're struggling with another person in their life. We always joke, it's not about how much you love someone when you love them. It's about how much you love them when you hate them. When your partner isn't able to show up for you as their best self, or, they're not giving you what you need, quote unquote. How can you come from a loving, compassionate, and empathetic place and not be reactive to their reactivity? That, I think, is the measure of a really spiritually aware and growing person, is the partner who's able to be non-judgmental, be non-reactive to their partner's reactive behavior. And I don't want to take for granted that all of our listeners are practicing empathy in this way. Given that everyone's sludge is surfacing this month, it's a great time to practice this conscious empathy, which is, it starts with really putting yourself in the other person's shoes. I would say if we had to break it down to step by step, the first step is putting yourself in their shoes. You don't need to discuss it with them, right? It's simply taking a step back and saying, I've been judged or criticized in that way, or maybe in a different way. I felt excluded or ignored, whatever they're going through, to take a moment to put yourself in their shoes, to stay out of judgment, to stay out of accusations or labeling, or I think the other thing that we tend to do is say, not my problem. I'm going to let them figure it out on their own. I'm going to let them, I have to take care of the kids. I got to pay the bills. I got to go grocery shopping. Come, let me know when you're over it. And we want to make sure that, again, maybe because our tendency is to the codependency, right? If they're not okay, I'm not okay. And the only other response is, I'm not, it's not even happening. That second step is really to stay in that observer role that we talked about before with ourselves, to do it for our partner. The third, and it's funny because this sort of parallels the tshuva process that we're all trying to work through.
Yeah, the transformation process.
Transformation process. So the first is putting yourself in someone else's shoes. We're talking about empathy here, but we can relate it to the repentance process in a second. Putting yourself in someone else's shoes, listening without judgment, recognizing, being emotionally intelligent enough to recognize that emotion in yourself. And I think that's the reason people prefer sympathy or total disengagement, is because if I get to your level and I feel your pain, I feel pain too. And that's scary for people, and we want to avoid it. It's natural. It's human nature to avoid pain and only chase things that make us feel good. But it's in that moment of recognizing the shared emotion that we grow closer together and we remove the space that's between us. And then, of course, and this is sometimes the part that we leave out, and the fourth step in the repentance process is often the part that we leave out also, is communicating that you recognize it, that you feel it, that you're there with them, that even if you aren't in that experience right now, you know what it's like and you're there for them. And so being able to show up in that way for another person is really, it's such a high expression of the light within you. Forget about them. You're not going to heal them. You're not going to cure them. Yes, they're going through what they're going through, but being able to offload a little bit of that struggle and bring that person closer to you. You can do that, by the way, with the barista at your local coffee shop too. It doesn't have to be with your partner. But I think because there's so much, relationships can be so complicated, it really is the most important, your significant other is the most important relationship to practice this in.
So powerful. I remember Michael Berg, if we need we all need motivation to implement what you just said. Michael Berg shared that part of the process of having empathy and understanding what other people are going through and not reacting to it is it allows you to get credit to not go through it as well. So sometimes when there's a potential destiny within let me rephrase that. Sometimes when in your destiny, you are about to go through something that is painful, there's a judgment that is hanging over your soul that you need to go through. You are presented with another human who is going through it. And if you can to the extent you can connect to their pain, you get time served for having to go through it yourself.
Please say that again, because that is like one of the most powerful teachings around emotion or around emotional connection. Yeah. I think that the Kabbalists give us.
We can relate it to sometimes when people are in court and they are being adjudicated to go to prison or not. And let's say they have a prison sentence of 2 years. But while they were going through the court system, they were jailed for a year. Sometimes the judge will say, we're giving you credit for 1 year time served because while you were waiting through this process, you were already in jail. In that same way, when we're supposed to go through something in our lives that is difficult, that has judgment, that will be challenging and bring up our fears and bring up our pain, and there's chaos involved, if we're supposed to go through that, often the Creator will send us someone who is going through it to give us the opportunity to have empathy and connect with their pain. To the extent that you can connect to their pain, you get credit for time served so that you don't have to go through it in the future.
And it's funny because I think, I might have said it before, the reason we avoid empathy is because it's painful for us. What David just shared, what the Kabbalists teach is that it's worth it to go through the shared pain than to actually invite a situation to put you through it personally. That's the incentive. That's the motivation, is that by connecting and being empathetic to my friend, to my partner, to my coworker, whoever it is, I remove the need to feel that pain again in my own life. So, it's so powerful.
Let's talk about Pisces for a moment, because you always have you have a good with Pisces. You always have good astrological, you know how to opine on the astrological community very well. So like, I know for myself, when I see a movie where there's something like about to happen that's like painful, whatever, like I don't want to hear it. I want to close my eyes. Like I don't want to experience that. When someone tells me, I don't know, like they broke a bone and they're telling me how that happened, like I don't want to hear it. Why is that? Why do I, and I feel things very deeply. Obviously, I sense things very much. I have, besides being Pisces, I have, I think, 4 or 5 planets in Scorpio. So there's a lot of that water in there. But why is it, Elisheva, that I get squeamish and I turn away from those types of painful things? And often I don't want to hear it. I don't want to deal with it. Why is that?
Okay, so there's 2 things. One, we touched on it a little bit before. is that when you hear, it's so funny. I was actually thinking, looking at watching, thinking, what can I watch on TV next? And something was suggested for me. And I was like, oh my God, I just know I would cry through
I don't want to deal with that.
I don't want, I'm sure, I know
so
it was
true.
Oscar worthy.
It's so true.
I just don't want to go through 2 hours
someone
of
deaf
sobbing.
or blind, and it's like the whole movie's about them. And you're like, I don't want to have to like think about that.
Right. The problem is because it touches our own pain. That's one level of it that I have packaged. The irony is with a Pisces is that we're so sensitive, and at the same time we don't want to feel it.
Mm-hmm, that's right.
So there is this mechanism that packages the hurt or the pain in a nice little package, and we can pull it out again when we need to be empathetic or
drip feed it if we need to.
Right, but many times with movies and things like that, you cannot control, right? It opens up the floodgates. And I think I've shared this before. I used to purposely watch sad movies when I was younger to release that, to empty out that package so that then I could. So
that's my question. Should I be not closing my eyes and plugging my ears? Should we just dive into it?
So the answer from the Kabbalists is yes.
Okay.
That in the same way you shared before, that by feeling that pain of our friend, we can offset our own.
So watching that movie about the blind kid and having to, leave my la la land.
Well, I'll give you an example. There was the preview for the movie. I won't give it away. It was a movie where the parent was feeling, they thought their life was coming to an end, and they felt they wanted to fix their relationships with their children.
Oh my God.
So obviously that was going to touch on all of my parenting failures and all of my insecurities. And it was kind of like, I'm sure it was a great movie. It won an Oscar. I'm not going there.
Let's watch let's watch Extraction 2 instead.
Food Network. We turn on Food Network for that reason. Right. But the other thing is that the connecting or exposing or feeling that pain also reminds us, and this is for the more spiritually minded listeners, it almost feels like we're reactive.
Right.
And we need to make sure that we are clear. Being emotional is not the same thing as being reactive. Choosing to feel someone's pain is not reactive.
Correct.
It's proactive. And maybe this is the most important minute of today's episode, that when you feel someone else's pain, when you choose empathy, and even if you cry, even if you remember how angry you are at whoever hurt you when you were 14, you are choosing to feel it. And in the moment you have made a choice, you are tapping into your soul, you are proactive, and you are releasing. You are not accumulating. And there is a big difference between accumulating negative emotion and releasing negative emotion.
I love that.
And the healing that can come from the crying or the sharing in that frustration or that anxiety with the other person, it's actually feeling it. What do we say? We said it a few years ago. In order to heal it, you have to feel it. And at the end of the day, that's what empathy is about, is that by feeling the other person's pain, we're not only helping them heal it, we're healing it ourselves. And the truth is, I wanted to ask you this question from the beginning and hear your perspective of it.
But we can continue this next week.
No, we can't.
The podcast has come to an end.
There's another, well, yes, but this is, I think, for this particular
this theme
week.
is continuing for the whole month.
Let's end it on this.
Okay.
The question is there ever a time not to be empathetic or compassionate? Like, is there ever a time where holding someone's hand is dangerous for us or negative for us?
Oh, that's a great cliffhanger. I'm telling you,
David.
That is the question we are going to answer on next week's podcast. And I want to just summarize, by the way, when I know we joke about it, but part of it is that we look at these podcasts as a source of energy. And we also want to learn that you don't need too much to tap into your endless light. So while we can go over this concept and that concept, and sometimes people are like, hey, could you talk for longer? What I've learned is you can download everything in 1 second. This is what our teacher, Rob Berg, used to say. In fact, he said when he wanted to learn what the news was, he would watch it for 1 second and then turn it off. And in that 1 second, he would download all of the hour of whatever's going on in the world. It's a very powerful understanding of restriction. So I want to summarize what we've talked about and then lead into the cliffhanger for next week, which is as we prepare for the most momentous 48 hours of our year, which is going to be the night of September 15th to September 17th, Friday to Sunday, Rosh Hashanah, our new destiny is being given to us. Be aware and conscious of the sludge that comes up to the surface. Don't react to it. Tell yourself, I have certainty that it's going to work out okay. And I accept the situation that it has come from the Creator. The second thing we said is, don't be afraid to feel. Don't be afraid to feel the areas that you're avoiding. You will be given situations and opportunities where you will want to turn away or shut down or close your heart or compartmentalize and push it into the future. Take the time to feel it. You only have a few weeks left before a new script is given where you might have to experience this movie all over again. And the final thing is, if someone is going through something, take the opportunity to feel what they're feeling so that you can get credit for time served and not have to go through the same thing. And
also to help you heal it.
That's right.
That's the reason that the opportunity or the situation comes to awaken the feeling is so that we can heal it, not so that we can suffer. And I just want to make sure everybody who's listening knows that 15th to 17th of September is for 2023. If you're listening in 2024, it's a different date, and we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Also, 33 seconds about what David said. These podcasts are also intended for you to be able to share it with friends and family. So if you know someone who's going through something, or someone whose partner is going through something, or if you know another human being, chances are there's something in this week's episode that can help them. So share the episode, like, rate, review if you haven't. The reviews are really amazing and help us get into, reach more people as well. Weekly Energy Boost is available on all podcast platforms, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. You can also visit our website, weeklyenergyboost.com, to look into our archives to see what other things we think are important for our listeners to know. And of course, to click the donate button and support the production of Weekly Energy Boost. And like David said, we'll start next week by delving into when is it okay not to be empathetic, and other Virgo-related and, of course, weekly energy ideas. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Weekly Energy Boost.